Hi, we're going to talk about the games I played in 2018 right now. This is going to be probably a very long video, so let's get right into it. These are roughly in the order that I played them. Starting with Melee, I probably played Melee on the first day of the year because I was hanging out with some Melee friends. And that's basically the only times I played Melee this year, is if I was hanging out with friends that also played it. I only went to two tournaments, one that I was convinced to enter, and then one as like a kind of a warm-up for that one, a weekly that was happening around the same time, and I got pretty washed. If you don't practice this game, if you don't keep up with it, if you don't play at least once or twice a week, you become rusty very, very quickly. It is not at all like riding a bike. It's like riding some sort of octopus unicycle that hates you. And I realized when I lost at those tournaments, even though I played pretty good, even though I outplaced my seed both times, I'm pretty sure, that being like they give you a seed based on how well they think you're going to do in the tournament, such that not all the best players end up fighting each other at the very beginning. This is pretty typical tournament stuff. And I did better than that, so I should be happy. And yet, I wasn't. I think tournament style competition where so much value is placed on just critical losses is just not a good fit for me. Because even in a situation like this where I should have no reason to expect much from myself and should be actually quite happy with the results I had, I just became really salty and withdrawn. I didn't want to play anymore. I didn't want to practice. I didn't want to hang out with people. And if you have that sort of attitude at a tournament, you're only getting like 10% of the possible enjoyment out of it that you could be. So I don't know. I think kind of taking a break from tournaments and getting some distance from it has made me realize that it's not that good a fit for me. So I don't plan on changing that anytime soon. I think my Melee playing will continue to dwindle and continue to be just sort of opportune situations where there's people around that want to play, and I'll just take it less and less seriously, and that's fine. It was a major part of my life for well over half of my life now. It was the reason that I met many of my friends and got into other related interests, so I'm always going to love it and cherish it for that. But I don't think active competition is in the future for me. But I still care a lot about this game. I really do, as it has been such a big impact on me. And I think Melee drives a unique sort of passion in people. So I was watching Genesis 6 last night. Overall, I don't know, pretty good tournament. But I was very upset that Hungrybox won, that's for sure. So much so that I threw my Nesso Berry that I was holding at my TV, totally involuntarily, just out of sheer frustration when HBox beat Axe. I threw it at the TV, and my friend that I was watching it with was, of course, very upset as well. We're both big non-HBox fans. Not just for like the personality stuff, the various rumors circulating around him and his treatment of women and such. Well, of course, that doesn't help the case, but I just really hate Jigglypuff. I hate Jigglypuff, and I hate Ice Climbers. Specifically, I hate wobbling. I think it's not fun to play against. As someone who used to play as Jigglypuff and is able to wobble sometimes, I can tell you that it's not fun to do either compared to the rest of the game. That everything I like about Melee, that feeling of like fluency and execution and speed and imposing your will and personality into the game, none of that comes through in these characters. I basically think you have to be a sociopath to want to compete as them at a top level and not choose a more fun, interesting character that better reflects the unique strengths of Melee. I think you might as well just go play some other Smash Bros. Game or Ultimate or something, I don't know. Anyways, I don't want to rant about that too much. What's interesting to me is the insane passion that comes through with these sorts of controversial elements in the game. And it's like, Melee is never going to die, in my opinion. Even though I'm worried about things like an overprevalence of wobblers and puff and floaties leading to slow gameplay, leading to less viewers, less sponsors, less players, and a slow dwindling death. On a rational level, I don't really believe that's going to happen. On a more rational level, as crazy as it sounds, I think this 18-year-old party game is just going to keep chugging along and will never really die. But I think the reason that it'll never die is this feeling that it could always die. So Melee is pretty unique. Most games have kind of a certain life cycle to them. They come out, they're played competitively for a while, the audience just sort of slowly dwindles, and then the new game in the series comes out, or a new game in a close enough to it in mechanics and gameplay comes out, and everyone just moves on to the new game, and there's kind of a revitalization. Melee has not done that at all. Melee has survived now 3 successors. It survived waxing and waning interest throughout its history. It survived eras of total developer non-support, and then also some very questionable developer support. It's gone through all of this, and even for other games that are like that, like something like Magic the Gathering, Magic the Gathering receives pseudo patches and bans and such by the release of new cards and updates to the ban list. Other games that have been played for eons and eons typically do get some sort of patches or balance patches or expansions or whatever. Melee, again, none of that. There was one balance patch way back around when the game came out with the PAL version. I don't know how well known this is, but the PAL version actually made balance changes to Melee, which is very interesting to me. The PAL version being the European version that came out a little bit later. They did things like nerf the strength of Fox's up smash, nerf the distance that his Firefox goes, they made Marth slightly lighter. Lots of little changes like that. That's very interesting to me. That really shows that they did, on some level, care about the competitive community, even way back then, when there wasn't really that much of a competitive community at all. Anyways, there is going to be no more patches to Melee. This is the game we're stuck with for the rest of our lives. So that when something like HBox becoming the #1 player in the world happens, when he is the #1 ranked player twice in a row and is just kind of assumed to win any event he enters, that's terrifying. That seems to suggest that there might just be a bad end to Melee, that this is going to be the future of top level play, and that it's just gonna die like this. And the thing though is that, like, to me that's a terrifying thing. To me that's a bad thing. But that's just me. That's just my opinion. It's not a super uncommon opinion, but it's not universal either. There's other people that are, God knows how or why, big HBox fans, big Jigglypuff fans. They love watching Jigglypuff. And for them, the idea that Fox Dittos are a common grand final site, or were in kind of a previous era, was terrifying, and they hated it, and they didn't like the idea that Melee was going to devolve into just Fox Dittos. So both of these people both love Melee, both want to see the game continue to prosper and grow, and to turn into something like chess, where it's being played many generations down the line with better and better players and better understanding. Both of them want that exact same outcome, but they have totally different ideas as to what's important to get us there. And it's almost like a blessing that Melee doesn't have balance patches, because who knows how many cycles we would have gone through where the prevailing tide would have nerfed this or that, or you know, made Fox's shine less impactful when it lands in the air to nerf shine spiking. Maybe they would have made Marth's Tipper less powerful, Captain Falcon's knee less powerful. They would have removed Sheik's chain grab like they did in PAL. All of these things that in retrospect I think would have been bad choices that would have taken away from the diverse and rich metagame that we have now could have easily happened. And so I feel kind of hypocritical wishing now that there was a balance patch that removed wobbling. It would have been so easy to do. Just make it that as soon as a character takes more than like 30% in pummel, they instantly get out. So wobbling is still good. It's still a good punish. It's just not the most brain-dead, un-Smash Bros-like, completely disregards every interesting mechanic the game has punish in the world. if Puff's rest was just nerfed to be the strength of like Marth's Tipper F Smash, I think that would be so cool that you always have to like legitimately combo into it. It doesn't completely kill the pace and rhythm of the game by being a kill option that's available at essentially 0. I also think Puff's up throw animation should be slower, so you don't have to DI on reaction, and I think Puff's bear should be nerfed so that more characters can crouch cancel it for longer. These are the changes I want to make, but that's just me, right? And I feel very passionately that the game would be better if they had those changes, but other people would think that it's much worse. And it's like that passion that when people are watching Genesis, it's not just to try to see their favorite player win, but they feel like the very future of the game, whether the game has a future or not, is on the line based on what people are able to do. And I feel like I'm never going to lose interest in that. I'm never going to not be caught up in that sort of struggle. Given that I've already put so much of my life into this game, I want to see it through. It kind of reminds me of reading like a shonen series, you know? And sometimes the author makes choices you don't like, sometimes there's whole arcs that you don't like, but you're still pulling for it. You still want it to achieve greatness. You want it to justify the amount of time you've been put in with the most like fantastic ending ever. That's how I feel about Melee, I guess. I don't know. Alright, that's 10 minutes of talking about Melee already. Oh, and I wanted to say too, Melee is also super exciting right now if you follow Break the Targets. So the one-player modes in Melee, which don't get very much attention these days, but were kind of more of a competitive focus around when the game came out and tournaments weren't as common, are still chugging along in really interesting ways. Even after 19 years, there's still discoveries and new routes being planned in Break the Targets, and the total high score for world records is inching closer and closer to going under 3 minutes for the first time ever. Isn't that amazing? My friend who competes in this at like the highest level, I think he's actually probably the best active player right now, is... I don't know if I'm not like putting words into his mouth that he later is embarrassed, but he thinks that it could happen by 2020. So that's one to watch out for. Anyways, I still love Melee. Melee is great. Just wish none of this. Just none of this. None of this. And it could happen. You know, I use this chess analogy because chess is a pretty immutable game. It's been roughly the same for millennia, and yet it does change. People have changed the rules of chess before, and different modes and variants like blitz chess becoming more and more competitively foregrounded and stuff. These things can happen. It's not set in stone. It's not a human rights issue where we're doing an extreme cruelty to someone by banning wobbling. They don't have to be a good character, Ice Climbers. No one is forcing them to choose Ice Climbers. No one is relying on them to win. You know, they're allowed to choose a bad character. Just be like Ness. Ness is a cool character. Ness has a lot of neat things going on, but he's bad, and that's fine. Ice Climbers can be bad too. They're still cool. You'll get respect now if you play them. They'll be like, wow, you're really an Ice Climbers fan. You're gonna go to all this effort to run this extremely difficult and unique character, and they're not even good. But now it's just like, oh, you're a wobbler. Oh, okay. Well, I'm not going to play friendlies with you. Anyways, Melee. It's emotional. We got to move on. I still have, like, many, many more games to talk about. In the Groove 2, I played a lot of as well. I didn't have access to an arcade cab at all this year. But we did get something pretty cool. A friend of mine made a cab, or a pad, sorry. He took a normal kind of home pad and modified it so that it has analog sensors instead of digital sensors, which is really cool because then he rigged up a little server, so you just use this phone that's sitting near the setup, put the thresholds you want for each sensor based on how you play, and then it turns into a pretty ideal setup. It turns into something that potentially has the same amount of sensitivity, accuracy, and reliability as an actual arcade cab. And we were never quite able to get it all the way there. Like, I was never able to be as comfortable and confident as I was on the arcade cab that my friend had last year. I guess 2 years ago now. It was always just a little too finicky for that, but it was really close. Like, way closer than anything else we've had before. So that was very exciting. I was able to play some pretty difficult songs. Getting up to the difficulty I was able to get on the cab. Not quite there, but getting there. So yeah, that was great. Good exercise. Fun game. Why won't it scroll to the next picture? What? Is it a slideshow? Should we just do slideshow? Oh, I thought I would click and then I would advance the slideshow. What the heck? What the heck? I can go back. Okay, now I can go for it. Alright, weird. Anyways, I played some VR chat. My friend was a very early adopter of the Oculus Rift, and also a pretty early VR chat player. I, however, played it right around when it started getting really memey. So I was there in a server with tons and tons of Ugandan knuckles and other Zoomer meme spewers, and it was not that pleasant. But my friend told me quite a few pretty cool stories about when the game first came out and he first started playing, the sort of people you would meet, the sort of conversations you would have. And I think there's a lot of potential. And now that the meminess has died down, my friend who still plays, I think he mostly just hangs out on private servers now, but he says there's still a lot of pretty cool people and pretty interesting conversations. I really like the idea. I think there's a level of like presence that you can get when you're all in virtual reality that you wouldn't be able to get in just like an IRC chat room or something. And the sort of people that I think are drawn to something like this, where you are playing as an avatar, you're perhaps role-playing to some extent, you're leaving behind your normal personality, your normal role, your normal appearance. I think the sort of people that are drawn to that are the sort of people that need a place to go, that more than anyone else have been kind of rejected or put off by other modes of interaction. So I'm very happy that this exists and that there's a framework for this and that it's somewhat popular. I don't know. I'm quite interested in VR in general too. I think it's pretty neat, and the experience of trying the Oculus was pretty cool. I don't know, like the sort of gaming I like to do is much more like digital inputs or like rather like a controller input where I'm just using a very limited part of my body. Like even something like ITG, it's not dancing, you know, you're just kind of hovering there, tapping the ground as quickly as you can. I really like that sort of feeling. I like that sort of detachment from my body. Whereas this, you know, it's a lot of moving your arms around and stuff that I don't really like on the Wii and on the Switch. But the avatar aspect of it, the fact that it's not your body doing it anymore and that what you see is another body doing it, that's kind of interesting. That might actually be able to overcome my distaste of this other element. So, I don't know. I think there's a lot of potential. This was, I think, the only VR game I played. None of the other ones he had really interested me. They were all like shooting games and stuff. Nah. Oh, and there was one like art simulator that you could draw in 3D space. That was pretty cool. I like that. Anyways. I played this. I was kind of excited for it. This is the 3D higher budget remake of Yume Nikki, which is a very, very special game to me. A very special game in general that kickstarted an entire kind of cult genre. Yume Nikki is a walking simulator. You play as Maratsuki here. You go into her dreams, you explore her dreams, looking for these little artifacts called effects, which I guess is like a personal effect. I never really thought about it, but that's actually just, yeah, that's like an English word meaning like a small thing you carry about your personal effects. Anyways, I never thought about that before. This remake makes it much more of a game. There's like action elements. It's much more horrific. It really tries to scare you. And I don't think those things are inherently bad or inherently against these sorts of games where it's much more about like the aesthetic and this atmospheric immersion. Something like Dot Flow, which is a game I quite like, has all of these things, like much more overtly horrific things and action elements, and I love it. But I don't think this game executed itself very well. I think, I don't know, I didn't finish it, We played a bit of it on the channel. Maybe you'd like me to finish it. I wouldn't mind finishing it at some point. I'm a little curious still as to how they incorporate other kind of classic Yume Nikki elements, but it's a morbid curiosity because I wasn't really impressed with how they did any of the elements so far. Something like the knife, you know? So in Yume Nikki, you can pick up a knife, which allows you to just kind of indiscriminately kill pretty much anything in the game. And there's this really kind of weird moral ambiguity to it, that most of the things you encounter are extremely peaceful, even if they look creepy, and you're never really sure, like, why are you stabbing them? Is it good? And am I routing out my demons, or am I just slaughtering innocents? It's like a really kind of a microcosm of the entire game, where it's all really up to you and how you feel about the things you're doing. And the way you find the knife is, it's just lying there on the ground. It's totally optional, like any of the other effects. Like, you can get them pretty much in any order, so you could have easily skipped the knife and never gotten it. Whereas here, it has like a gravitas to it, that you're running from stuff and then, ooh, you see the knife and it's like in a spotlight or something, and it feels like, you know, you're pulling the Kokiri sword out of the chest in Ocarina of Time, and now you're off to kill monsters, and it kind of wants it to land as this moment of like empowerment. Yeah, and now it's time to fight back. It's like, no. That's not at all what this game is supposed to be. And I don't know, it's kind of disappointing that Kikiyama, the enigmatic creator of the original Yume Nikki, was involved with this, that they didn't say, no, that's not what I was going for. Which makes me wonder if this is actually what they were going for, and it was more their programming limitations that made it such a peaceful, barely interactive, just kind of wandering around game. And they actually would have loved it if it was like a horror platformer with stabby and jump scares and stuff. So it's like, oh, we got really lucky. I don't know. There are some parts that I liked. There are some areas that were kind of cool. It made me think that there is actually a lot of potential in a proper remake of Yume Nikki that uses better graphics and is maybe a little more gameplay-y. But just doesn't go this far, you know? So it's not a total loss, I guess. Anyways. This is Flitter Inc. This is a kind of, I guess, artsy sort of game. I don't know how to describe it, but a friend of mine made, a good friend of mine made this while he was looking for a job, along with another kind of choose-your-own-adventure game called, I think, Job Seeker or something. I really like this game. I made one video on it. I was planning on making more, but it felt kind of uncomfortable to be talking about my friend's writing and praising it, and I don't know. It just didn't feel like a good fit for videos, but I hope I advertised it to some extent, and I hope some of you checked it out, because I think it's a really cool game. The concept is you're working in a somewhat totalitarian regime. It's this sort of alternate future. Things are a little weird. And your job is to censor flits, I think they're called, which are posts in this alternate universe version of Twitter. And you're given an assignment each day, you know, censor all posts that have to do with the moon. Censor all posts that have to do with this particular person. And you just see this flood coming through one at a time. You either approve or reject it. And then you're monitored based on how many you let slip through or whatever. So there's like kind of a gameplay element, of course. There's like a potential lose state, but it's much more about learning about the world, kind of coming to your own decisions about what's going on, piecing it together from these tiny little messages, and it's very unique in that regard. I really like this idea of like an alternate universe Twitter that you just get a glimpse into, and you have to kind of puzzle out what this world is from those. And I think the tweets are really well done. And again, I feel a little, I guess, embarrassed. I don't know, praising my friend like this. I hope he's not embarrassed. I don't think he'll watch this, but whatever. just like they're funny, they feel authentic, the complaints are relatable, even though it's this different world. The sort of memes that like rise and fall throughout the game that you see in a bunch of posts, I think are hilarious, and again, really accurately kind of model how memes on Twitter works. I don't know. Yeah, I was very impressed with this. I hope he finds the time to make more games now that he's gainfully employed, because it's very conceptually very cool and very well executed. So yeah, check it out. I played a bit of this, Celeste. I did not finish it. I really should finish it. I barely even started it. I want to make more videos about it. I want to just praise this game to the high heavens, but I know that I've barely even scratched the surface. All I can say is sort of secondhand praise from friends of mine that are into it. So I have a friend who's really into Melee. You've seen him in videos before, my friend Eric. Yeah, he was the guy playing this with me. That we were watching Melee last night, anyways. And he actually, I think he says he prefers this game to Melee. He talks about just the beauty and purity of it, that it's all movement. As far as I know, I don't know what's up with this girl. I didn't get that far. But there's no combat in the game at all. It's just moving through the levels. It is really beautiful to me. It makes me feel like when I'm playing Melee and I'm moving around and stuff, but it's all for the purpose of beating somebody up, that I'm actually being quite barbaric and cruel. And the game is competitive too, but in speedruns that people will do races, there's like race tournaments, there's the ever-growing pressure to drive down the world record, and that great sense of both collaboration and competitive nature, I think, is really beautiful and quite analogous to mountain climbing, you know? That it's an entire team working together, using the best of their technology available, and yet at the end it is a very triumphant sense. It's a sense of conquering something, of doing something that others cannot. So yeah, I don't know. Very, very beautiful game. I was very, very impressed with the little that I played, and I'm looking forward to a chance to play more. And then this is the other game that the same friend, Eric, not Eric Hermanson, that made this game, it's just a coincidence, really praised a lot and got me to play, and I played a bit of it on the channel. I think it's much, much more intimidating, much, much more niche and unappealing than Celeste, but also quite a beautiful and amazing game in its own way. So it is a roguelike puzzle game, in that, like, aesthetically it looks like a roguelike, and the controls are somewhat similar to a roguelike. And the way that everything moves at basically the same time, like you take a step and then all of the enemies take a step, is quite similar to roguelikes. But there's no RPG elements or anything like that. It's just kind of a strict puzzler where you have to figure out, based on the kind of things you deduce about the enemy's AI, about the geography of the map, all of that. You have to figure out the sometimes incredibly difficult and complex solution to how to get your guy to kill everything. That's your job. You've been called to exterminate the entire dungeon. Aesthetically, this game is really bizarre. It has kind of an outsider feel to it, where it seems like the guy who made it had never played a video game in his life before, or perhaps never even seen any sort of visual medium. Like, just look, even in this one screenshot, at how blaring the colors are. And yet at the same time, there is a lot of effort put into the aesthetics, like the shadowing here and the details of these titles, and this guy in the top left who's your player character that will react to everything that's happening. Oof, oof. I don't know. It's bizarre. It's really bizarre that this exists. And that it's as good as it is, and that even people like my big brain math friends are super into this game and find it satisfyingly challenging, is miraculous. So, you know, Eric Hermanson, that guy must be a pretty genius guy. So I'd like to play more of this. At the same time, I would be totally content never playing it again. I'm more just extremely happy to know it exists. I'm just very, very glad that this game exists for the sort of people that want to play it. So this list is mostly video games, but I wanted to talk about a couple non-video game games that I played this year and quite enjoyed, and would recommend any of you to try out too. So the first one is a game that I play with my older cousin. We had both read the same interview with Shigeru Miyamoto, pictured here. Although neither of us can quite remember the details of it, where we read it or anything, we both can remember this thing that Miyamoto talks about where he says he really likes guessing how large things are, and that he actually carries around a tape measure, and to kind of just amuse himself, he'll say, I bet that's about like 20 centimeters, and then he'll go over and measure it and check. So we started playing a game based on this. We've been playing for a few years now, but I would say this year had probably the most play yet, and the most like kind of formalized play yet, where we really started talking about this game as a game and less just kind of doing it. You know what I mean? It's the first time we named it. We've been referring to it as Shigeru, right? Why am I so bad at pronouncing Japanese still? Don't I like know this language kind of? Anyways, Shigeru measurement game, the Shigeru measurement game. So how it works, you have a tape measure that both of you agree is a nice, accurate, useful tape measure. Depending on the scale that you want to play at, you'll have to accommodate a certain granularity, but then also a certain max length. You should also agree, are you playing in metric or imperial? And then you just kind of go around. One person will choose an object. You have to very clearly indicate, okay, I'm talking about the most extreme corner closest to this of this case to the extreme other corner. Then you get to study it. You know, kind of depending on the scale of it, you're allowed to get a certain closeness. You're allowed to prime certain distances before you start playing. Like, we usually start by measuring out 30 centimeters, 20 centimeters, 10 centimeters, a meter, whatever. Just kind of like looking at it, squaring it up with your body. Yeah, it's like, it's about 50 there. Yeah, it's about 50 centimeters. So you're allowed to kind of apply these, you know, it's all friendly rules, so it's just trying not to do anything that's blatant cheating or whatever. More and more what you're trying to do is deliberate, to kind of cultivate a quickness and a deliberateness that doesn't require tricks or aids or anything like that. So the person who chose the object, how did it work? No. The other person, the person who didn't choose the object, has to guess first, and then the person who proposed the object will say whether they think it's more or less than the guess. And then they're also encouraged to make a guess of their own, but it's more about the more or less. And then whoever, if the more or less was true or false, they either get a point or not. Did I explain that well? But the points don't really matter. We would never actually keep score. But it is satisfying to know that you've gotten it right, like 3 or 4 times in a row. It's a really lovely game. It's great to play outdoors. You know, you just kind of wander from place to place in a fairly small area. It has kind of the feel of like cricket or bocce ball, you know, those really kind of old British lawn games where everyone has kind of a gentlemanly conduct, and there's no like, well, I guess cricket has running, but you know, there's no sense of exertion or anything undignified like that. You're just kind of just enjoying the day and playing this leisurely game. It scales really nicely with difficulty. You kind of start with straight lines, you know, playing maybe more with like artificial things that are around. You can play indoors too. We usually play outdoors, but you can play indoors too. And of course, anything that's man-made is a lot easier to kind of measure. You might already have some sense of how big it is. And then you start getting into nature and you can do stranger shapes. You can start doing like multi-dimensional things where instead of just going like corner to corner on here, you would go like from this corner to this corner. So now you're kind of moving in like the 3D plane. We would even do phantom distances, where it would be like, okay, what's the height of that leaf that's falling down? You can adjust between microplay and macroplay, where you're either looking at very, very small distances or very large ones. We would usually go between like the size of individual petals on flowers, where you're kind of going like, oh, I think that's like 1.4 centimeters, to the distance between two trees, which is like, oh, you know, this is 7.5 meters, you know? So the scale is extremely flexible too. It's really fun. I really think this is a brilliant game, and I really encourage everyone to try it. And I think it is actually helping me develop what is in some situations, not a lot of situations, but in some situations quite a useful skill, which is the ability to pretty accurately estimate sizes and distances quite quickly. So yeah, check it out. Check it out. Try it. There's nothing to check out. I told you everything. That's the whole game. Yeah. This is the other game that me and friends created and played a decent amount of this year. It's called Tony Tiger YouTube Game. I don't remember why it's called that, but it's definitely called that. And we can actually do a demo, maybe. Maybe that would be a fun way to show you how this game works. So you start with an incognito tab. You go to YouTube, signed out. So this is just like the normal recommendations that everyone has. And then you have a video in mind. I would recommend it's like a fairly popular video. It gets harder and harder the less popular it is. So let's see if we can find sicko mode, but it's just Big Chungus laughing. So what you have to do is navigate to that video using only the recommendations. So you start with anyone that you can see on the front page. It's controversial whether you're allowed to scroll down and load more of the front page. Like you can see here, it's actually loading dynamically. I don't know. From these, I would likely start with maybe one of these, but this is difficult because it gets you into Fortnite videos. We might actually want... no, this is a pretty rough selection. This is going to be hard. We want to get into memes. We want to get into music. We want to get into hip-hop. Let's start with... there's a video about the Super Bowl halftime show. That would be good. You know what? This game is probably dangerous to play because I'm going to show videos and then I'm going to get a count takedowns. So anyway, all right, let's just dive into it. We're probably not going to be able to win very well here. The start one is so difficult. Okay, we do Crab Rave. Pause that immediately. Hope it's okay. And then, so this is the idea, is you have to choose just from these videos without clicking show more. You have to go all the way to your target video only clicking these. It's really fun and it's really interesting because what will happen is it'll start building up algorithmically what it thinks you want just from these videos that you're clicking. This seems like a good route. So now it knows that we're like interested in memes, we're interested in like medleys, and probably because there's like cartoon memes in here and it just thinks we're a little kid or something, we're seeing a lot of these. So that's bad. This is going to infect us. This is like an infestation we've taken on where like these Lego game videos are going to be occupying slots the entire time. So you got to watch out for that. You got to figure out kind of a good way to break into the area of YouTube you want. So I'm looking for anything to do with hip-hop. Meme music will probably get us pretty far into sicko mode, and then maybe we might be able to take the backdoor Big Chungus route. You start talking like this while you're playing it. It's insane. And it's like addictive too. Like we started with what we thought was going to be a fairly easy one, which is Mewtwo King versus the Shizwiz, this really famous melee match. And we found it maybe in like half an hour or so. I think on our first try too. But then we wanted to get one, it's the Rare Kumiko Noises compilation, where it's just like all of the weird sound effects that Kumiko makes during Hibike Euphonium, and that took us like 3 hours, I think. And we had to like start over a few times because you would just get too infected. There would be like all of these like Marvel videos and Dragon Ball videos, and it's like we're only rolling like 2 new videos each time. It's just gonna take forever. So we allowed ourselves to restart sometimes. Yeah, it's really fun. And it's like an infinitely dynamic game that you can choose any video and try to find it. And that any time you play it, it's going to be different too, because other videos will have cropped up, other algorithmic connections will have been found. It's really, I don't know, I think it's quite a wonderful game. I'm very happy that we came up with it. So yeah, try that one out too. Tony Tiger YouTube game. Could try to get a little competitive scene going for it. See what the fewest clicks you need to get to certain videos and stuff. I don't know. It seems like fun. I played a bunch of this Mario Tennis Aces. I quite liked it. I'm always been a big fan of Mario Tennis. My favorite it was for a long time the N64 one. I haven't played enough of this one to see if it competes with it. I like the GameCube one quite a lot too. Generally, I just want to play with as few gimmicks as possible. None of the slow-mo shots, none of the aiming shots, none of the like timed charge racket breaking mechanics. None of that interests me that much. I just like the tennis gameplay. I like the variety of characters, and I like the really fast pace. The roster in this is fantastic. I love that you can play as Chomp. I love that you can play as Spike. But where is Magic Koopa? Where is Magic Koopa? My cousins and I were complaining about this all the time. Where is Magic Koopa? Oh, I just realized I didn't put Overcooked 2 on this list. We played a bunch of Overcooked 2 the same weekend, so I thought of it. It's basically the same as Overcooked 1. It's just more. The biggest thing they add is the ability to throw ingredients, which is actually super hype. Like, you can do stuff like throw meat onto the cutting board, saving yourself a crucial step. You can throw things into pans and they immediately start cooking. So I think the skill ceiling went like way up with that very simple addition. So, you know, that was a lot of fun too. Anyways, yeah, Mario Tennis Aces, I think it's pretty good. We played quite a bit of the campaign, which was mixed. Some of them were very interesting and fun, and other ones were just like really frustrating and tedious. But mostly we just played against each other, and it was a blast. Yes. So I played a decent amount of this year. This, I think, is more where my kind of competitive mentality is suited versus tournaments. This, you know, I can go online, I can just kind of grind on the ladder for a while, I can try to make my rating go up. That feeling of just making a number increase is very satisfying. I still love beating people. I still love the feeling of playing well. I still love losing close games and then overcoming in the rematch. Like, all of that stuff still really appeals to me. I still like being competitive. But it just doesn't have the feeling of tournaments where when you lose, you just like, well, at least for me, it's just like, man, why did I even come? And my friend, one of the friends I was playing Tony Tiger YouTube game with, put it to me really nicely. Where he's like, well, that's just proof that you tried. It's just proof that you really tried and that you really cared. And you should be proud of that feeling, that it's that devastating when you lose. And it's like, yeah, that's a good point, but I don't need that anymore. I would rather just kind of do this. So now I think this is going to be my go-to game when I just want to do something that gives me that competitiveness, that adrenaline or whatever. Just hop on net play, grind out some matches. It's really fun, and I still think I am improving. My Puyo is definitely getting stronger. I used to only play like kind of harassment Puyo, which everyone hates, and even I hate, where instead of just making big chains, you just focus on making small chains really quickly and disrupting your opponent's big chains. It's not good at like a competitive level. It's not viable against someone who can consistently make big chains, but at like a lower level, you can usually kind of throw people off their game and just kind of harass them to death. But I want to stop. I want to actually be able to make big chains. But at the same time, I guess it's just sort of my contrarianness, but I don't like learning the typical chains, like your typical ladder patterns and stuff. It just kind of feels lame when I do that. Even if it works, I'm just like, oh, okay. I would rather learn the kind of more creative, dynamic, on-the-fly combos that the really high-level players set up because they're less disruptible and because they're faster. That you can more effectively use all of the Puyos you're given. But in the meantime, it means that I do a lot of like non-combos. I get confused by what I'm doing quite often, but it's getting there. It's getting there. I love this game. I love this game so much. Both Puyo and Tetris are, in my mind, nearly perfect games, if not perfect games. And playing swap between them is just so satisfying. It feels like just different regions of your brain alternating spikes, which I guess is like what happens during a seizure, but you're not quite there yet. Yes, beautiful, beautiful game. Probably, yeah, as I said, kind of my go-to competitive game going forward. I just wish it had Tetris Attack as well. If there was like a triple swap, Puyo Puyo X Tetris X Panel de Pawn. I'm wearing my Panel de Pawn shirt right now, actually. I love Panel de Pawn. That would be the best game of all time for me. Anyways, this is another game I competed at quite a lot. So actually, probably the easiest thing to do is just to show you a replay of it, which I think I can find quite easily. Hopefully, where did I save these? Here? No. Oh, no, no, no. Where did I put them? I downloaded all my replays off of my Google Plus account, which is where I was uploading them. Where did I put them? Also, when I said Google Plus just now, I meant Google Drive. Ah, dang. Hold on. Hold on. This is going to be worth it. Okay, there's still a few in my Google Drive, so we can watch those. So this is a cell phone game that my friend showed me. It'll be quite evident what the mechanics are. You take turns placing animals. You can scroll them from side to side and rotate them into fairly discrete positions. There's a wide variety of animals, including like ones that are more rare than others, I think. It's kind of a mysterious game. You're just sort of left to infer a lot of these mechanical things on your own. And because it's like not that popular, and I was taking it much more seriously than probably anyone else, there's no real documentation on a lot of like the strategy and maneuvers and stuff too. Like something like that. It's like you either have to witness somebody else doing it or just kind of try on your own. And the lose state, which we're coming up to soon, is when somebody makes the tower topple over and any animal falls past this point. That means you lose. Looks like they're about to lose. You can emote like this. Beautiful game. Beautiful game. Basically, a perfect game. I say that with no exaggeration whatsoever. I put a lot of time into this game. Way more than is reasonable. It's just global matchmaking with slight biases towards people around your same score. So you can just grind the ladder all day if you want. I think I got pretty dang good at it. I felt pretty consistent that I was able to play well. I didn't make dumb mistakes. I started coming up with pretty impressive maneuvers, I think. And my obsession was such that I wanted to do all sorts of stuff with this. I wanted to pivot my entire YouTube presence to Animal Tower focused things. I wanted to make like combo videos, you know, like highlight reels with booming dubstep music with various levels of sincerity. I really wanted to do all of this stuff. I wanted to come up with like strategy guides, show people cool maneuvers and stuff. Man, don't get me started. The number of cool little things in this game, like just little situations, and it's kind of like Melee too, where it's a lot about like analog decision making. There's so many different variables, so many different things that every game you play is going to be unique. Every single match you're going to have to think a little differently than you ever have had before. And sometimes you're thrown into extremely bizarre and unique situations where you're having to go back to your very Animal Tower fundamentals to work out how can you possibly win in the situation. I don't know. I still love this game. I would still love to go super into depth with it, to show you my huge library of replays. After every game, you have an option to save your replay. Which, God, I hope I didn't just lose them. Because it's like I need this free up space on my Google Drive account. So I downloaded all of them, I thought, and put somewhere. I thought. Are they in here? Oh, baby. All right, here it is. We'll watch a few more. We'll watch a few more. Let's try this one that's called Circus Shit. That might be interesting. Aesthetically, the game is hilarious to me. It's just got this soundtrack, and these sound effects. Oh yeah, I became like a cultist for this game. I was playing it all the time I could. I was telling all my friends about it. Again, with this sort of pseudo-sincerity where I was acknowledging how absurd it was and yet really trying to convince people, no, there's something pretty cool going on with this game. It's, it made me want to do stuff like, oh. Uh-oh. I'll throw some sweat for that one. It has like such a friendliness to it. A lot of people, like when you lose, they'll give you the sweat, you know? Or they'll give you the hearts if you make like a really nice play or the thumbs up or whatever. Ooh, this is a rare one. You barely ever see the chick. That was pretty cool. Ah, man, this game's so sweet. It makes me want to make Pokemon Tower. I think Pokemon Tower would be so cool. Just the exact same game, but with the Pokemon. I guess it would. I don't think the sprites would work very well. I think you would have to use like vectorized versions of the official art. Yeah, I thought that was pretty good. That was pretty clever. Let's see what I do here. That's pretty nuts. There's like layers to this game too, where at the start you don't really know what you're doing, you're just kind of throwing animals around. And then you start kind of figuring out sustainable patterns, you know? Like you know, okay, if I put my panda on the back between these two spots, I'll get like contact here and here, and that's pretty stable. But then, look at that. I'm a genius. Look at that. So that's more like the second level. It's like I knew. But then you get to this stage where you just start making like miraculous plays, where there's like one pixel where it's going to balance, and you just smell it. You just like, just drag it perfectly. Oh, it looks like I lost this one. Yeah, I should have seen that coming. See if I can find one of these like miraculous. Oh, Miracle Giraffe. That might be a good one. Oh, that's so good. Actually, this one is like right when I started. You can see I only have one win, one loss. This is probably not that interesting. Oh, I think... Yeah, check this out. I think I must have seen somebody do this. I don't know why I would have thought that this would work had I not seen somebody do this. Oh! What is that? You can only do it at the ledge too, because it's actually wrapping around just a little bit. And all of these things too, these jagged parts, actually have like texture. Oh, and there's like multiple stages. You get a random between like 3 different sizes of the platform. It's crazy. But there's still parts of the game that I never once was able to understand. Like, sometimes it seems like when you drop it from a great height, it accelerates, and then it has like more momentum to tumble and stuff. Whereas like when I set it there, it barely moves. But I'm not actually sure if that's true, because then other times I'll watch it fall for a long time, and it seems like it's falling at a steady speed. So even basic things like that, I don't really understand. Oh, alright, let's watch this one. Holy shit. Oh, this one's a long one. It looks like, probably just... Oh my god! this game is so good. So I played this probably every day for like a month or so, maybe even like a month and a half. And then one day I just didn't play. I think because I just didn't have any opportunity to play. You know, I don't know why. And I was like, oh, I'm free. Like it's over now. And I just stopped, and I haven't played since. It's probably for the best. I was spending a lot of time on this game. Oh, it's so sick, though. Are you ready for this? I think he pulls this off. I kind of remember this one. Oh my god. Oh my god. That's like when Mango read Armada's role and rested at the end of Genesis 2. It's like that same level. Oh, what do I do here? Okay, alright, safe play, safe play. You can do some pretty crazy vertical cheetah strats. I'd be amazed if he pulls this one out. Because it's like, this is kind of stable, the cheetah on the giraffe. But yeah, see? Once you get more, it actually starts pivoting down here. So like, a pretty common amateur mistake is that you're only looking like one animal down. And you're looking at the interaction between the topmost animal and the one beneath it. But you actually should be looking at like the flex points underneath. Like, where is there actually instability that will like pivot if there's a weight asymmetry? Anyways, that's Animal Tower, one of the greatest games of all time. I don't encourage you to check it out because it will ruin your life. Also, even though this is a pretty common promotional artwork, I don't think the penguin is in the game. I never ever remember seeing the penguin. But yeah, let's make Pokemon Tower. That would be so cool. Okay, moving on. What the hell? Why does this keep happening? Is it because it's like sort of... Oh, there we go. Super Mario Party, I played a bit. This is a game kind of like Animal Tower where I get a little too competitive maybe. And it's not that I'm that like emotionally invested into it. Well, no, maybe I am. I just like the feeling of really taking a game seriously. And the more there's like kind of a mismatch between the aesthetics of it and how serious I take it, the funnier it is to me. I guess that explains my interest in Super Smash Bros. Too. But Mario Party, I think, is actually quite an interesting game to take seriously. There's so many elements to it. There's so many factors at play that it almost feels like a Fukumoto manga, where sometimes you just have these like insights that you're like, oh wait, if I do this, 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 and this, and I get lucky here, here, and here, then I could actually still win. That there's like these like magical gleaming roads. And then if you're playing with 3 friends too, there's also a lot of politicking. There's a lot of like subterfuge and backstabbing, and if everyone agrees to kind of take it seriously, but not too seriously, it's quite fun. And I'm so damn good. Oh, I'm so damn good. Oh, my win rate is like nuts. It's like close to 50%. It's a 4-player game. A good win rate is like slightly over 25, and I swear I'm like around 50. When we first played this game, we played like 3 modes, and I won all 3. I won all 3. Even the 2v2 one, where I was stuck with the computer, I still won. Because of the gigantic brain. The super rippled, dense neuron brain. And, well, that's just it, too, is that you really do get lucky. Like, so many of my victories were just, like, sheer luck. But that just adds to it. Because then you gloat a lot. Anyways. Oh, man, and in Japan, too. I was, like, gloating about it again. I don't even remember why this came up. No, it was, like, something completely different. And I said to my friend, like, oh, that's the nicest thing you've ever said to me. I don't even remember what it was. He's like, no, the nicest thing I've ever said to you is if I admitted that you were the best at Mario Party. And technically he did not actually admit that I was the best at Mario Party. He worded it in such a way, you know, like if I had said that, but I was like, I'm taking it. And I was so excited, I jumped up and down as high as I could. I was trying to replicate, there's a tournament where Mango wins and he jumps really high and he like pulls his legs up and kind of like stomps down. I wanted to do that for some reason. So I did that and I hurt my shin really badly. For like a few days, it was like painful to walk around. Oh, it's so stupid. I'm actually such a stupid person. I'm just good at Mario Party. Oh, I'm so damn good. Anyways, none of that matters. Let's talk about this as a Mario Party game. Given that we love Mario Party and take it too seriously, what do I think about Super Mario Party? I think it's alright. I think the mini games are really consistently good. There's very few like complete BS ones or lame or uninspired ones. The controls in the mini games are very consistent and such that you can feel like you're good at them and that you can be consistently good at them. All of that stuff is great. I think where it kind of falls apart for me is that it just kind of feels bland. All of the board choices feel very safe and like the board mechanics. Even things like the UI has been really like modernized and it doesn't have that kind of goofy Mario feel to it anymore. It has kind of the clean feel of like post Wii Nintendo consoles. It all just kind of feels sanitized in a way that sort of sits poorly with me. But there's other stuff they added that I think is really cool. The 2v2 game, where they really did aim to add, I think, a lot more strategic depth with the way you move about the board and stuff like the character-specific dice blocks. I think all of that is kind of cool. I kind of wish that there wasn't mechanical things that are married to aesthetic choices, like your character. Like it used to be that your character choice didn't matter at all, which I kind of like. But now it's tied to what dice block you get. It's like, I don't know if that's necessary. But the custom dice block itself, I think, is kind of cool. And the 2v2 mode where you're moving freely around the board and it feels a lot more like kind of like a board game, I think is neat. It seems to me that they're taking cues from the board game boom in a typical Nintendo fashion, like many, many years later than the actual board game boom. But that they're looking at it and they're kind of incorporating strategic elements and things that people my age like about board games into Mario Party. That's all pretty cool. I think the character roster is great, but it comes at an interesting downside. So there's so many playable baddies now, you know? You can play as Goomba, you can play as Hammer Bro, you can play as Koopa, all of that stuff. I love playing as Koopa. Oh, Koopa's so great. He gives you this look when you're losing, where he looks so disappointed in you. Just gets me pumped up. It's like, I gotta win. I can't make Koopa sad. Anyways, so I love the roster, but because all of these characters are playable in the minigames and stuff, they have to resort to like other generic enemies, because you can't really have like a playable Goomba and then minigames that are about like stomping on Goombas. So it's in this sort of weird space where they're using like a lot of Mario enemies that we don't see too often, which has a potential to be kind of cool, but they're like kind of the blandest, most like role-fitting ones, and then it just seems like out of place that you're stomping on like a whatever beetle from like New Super Mario Bros. 2 rather than just stomping on a Goomba, right? It also has the funny effect where, like, right when we started, my one friend played as Goomba, and I realized I was like avoiding him in minigames because I thought he was an enemy. I don't know. It was weird. It was like a very strange sensation that the Goomba was moving in the way that it was. So yeah, overall, I like this game. Not my favorite Mario Party, but it's up there. Like I said, the minigames are all really solid, and that's what counts way more than anything. I also think the cooperative river racing minigame thing is really fun. Yeah, so that was good. This is We Were Here. I played this with a friend of mine. She plays a lot of games like this, but this was... I think she plays a lot of games like this. She had played a game by these same people before, I think, at least. So this is like a horrific kind of horror, kind of thriller, mystery puzzle solver game. The premise is pretty cool. One of you is like trapped in one part of the mansion and one of you is trapped in the other part, and you have to find clues in each half to kind of give each other directions on how to solve the puzzles. So it's all cooperative. It's pretty fun trying to like describe what you're looking at, trying to figure out, okay, I think I saw some books with those symbols, you know, kind of coming up with your own on-the-fly pigeons for the sort of things you're referring to. Oh, that is pretty cool. I had a good time. I didn't think I would like it. um, I was mostly just playing it because I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll try. But I liked it a lot more than I thought I would. And I got kind of spooked at some points too. I'm not usually very good with horror games, so that's not a big surprise. But yeah, I think there's a lot of potential in a genre like this. Um, this idea of like asymmetric cooperative gameplay, I think, is really cool. And I had played last year that Keep Talking and Nobody Gets Hurt bomb defusal game. Did I play that last year? Did I talk about that in last year's video? Or did I play it this year? I just forgot to talk about it. Anyways, I played that and I thought that was really cool. I didn't think I would like it again. I thought I would just find it like stressful and not that interesting, but just the feeling of like coming up on the fly with a way to communicate something that only one of you can see is actually just so neat. Yeah, I don't know. Cool game. Yes. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. We're an hour into this video now. I hope you're prepared for another long discussion. So, of course, I'm a big fan of Melee. Big fan. Probably my favorite game of all time. Brawl, I was very disappointed by. I can still remember so vividly having stayed up like multiple nights in a row, right around when it leaked, like mashing F5 on Usenet servers and on torrent trackers and stuff because I was just so desperate to play the game as soon as I was capable of it. And like playing it, staying up probably another night, unlocking all the characters, and then just this growing dread of like, I'm not really enjoying it. It's not Melee. I just want to play Melee. And then Smash 4, I barely was interested in at all. I still don't think it has really very much interesting going on in the gameplay. So I wasn't really that excited for Ultimate. I just didn't think I would have any fun with it. I wasn't even sure if I was going to buy it. But then I actually played it. And it's fun. It's actually a really fun game. I really like it. So I'd say the big differences between this and Smash 4 that make it interesting to me is a lot more maneuverability in the neutral game. Like you can just move around a lot faster and you have a lot more options, which is fun. Just if I can't have fun just moving my character around, I don't think I'm going to enjoy a Smash Bros. Game. And there's actually combos now. When you get a hit, it's not like you have to just do the one prescribed thing that'll max out the damage like in Smash 4, which was probably just 3 up tilts and an up air. But you feel like you can kind of do some stuff. You can try new things. You can incorporate reads into your combo. You can mix it up. You can kind of extend further by using these new movement options, using better movement fluency, and kind of surprise your opponents that way. So just little changes like the speed at which characters move, speed at which characters fall. That's all they really had to do, and the game became way more interesting. I think the characters' tools in neutral, too, are way more diverse in this game. Again, in Smash 4, I had the perception that it was mostly just fishing for grab, or fishing for like 1 or 2 other moves, which are just normal kind of launchers. Whereas here, you've got like all of your top tiers and even all of your low tiers have like semi-viable moves that are quite unique in neutral. I'm thinking here specifically of Isabelle, one of my favorite characters, one of my mains, and like the mix-ups you can do between your slingshot, your fishing rod, your dash attack, just kind of normal Smash Brothers approaches like doing running dare, running jump dare. But, like, it's a cool character. Like, if this character was in Melee, I would be happy that she's in Melee, which hasn't been true for like a lot of the additions they've added over the years. I still have gripes with it. Namely, the number one, hands down, I never will understand why they changed this, is that when you're running and you jump, it's no different than a standing jump. That there's no transfer of momentum. And this is something that Nintendo figured out in the original Super Mario Brothers in 1985. and it was in Melee, and it was in Smash 64, and it was in all sorts of other HAL Laboratory games. But I swear to God, Sora, the kind of ad hoc company that assembles itself around each new Smash Brothers launch, I don't think they're good at programming mechanics. I think HAL Labs is the best of any studio at making good movement fluency. I think they just have a very good sense of what's fun in terms of moving your character, the amount of freedom that they should give you, the trade-offs between like fast options and high commitment options, things that have like burst speed, things that leave you open, things like trading off a commitment with another commitment. This idea of like when you're running, you can't stop yourself as easily, but then if you jump, you kind of have a few more options, but then that like limits you in other ways. Now you've committed to being in the air. All of these things HAL does exceedingly well. And like that's the magic of why Melee is such a good game and why it's still played now. And I think the Sora and like Sakurai and all of these people that I think are still geniuses that still make really good choices just don't care about the game at that level. They just don't want to invest the time really, really working out like the minutia of like, okay, if a character is dashing, how many frames should the dash be? What should the dash be interruptible with? When does it transition into a run? What is the difference between dashing and running? And it's like they've changed these things in Ultimate, and I think most of the changes are for the better, but they just don't seem like intentioned, focused changes based around an overall philosophy. It just kind of seems like they're trying stuff. and that's fine. That's like better than not trying stuff. That's better than having it just stuck the way it was in Brawl. But it's not quite there for me. And what this limits more than anything is the idea of in Melee that you can impose your will onto the game. And this is something I've always loved about Melee, that I think is truer for Melee than any other game, where most fighting games, it's kind of read versus read, that you come up in your head with what you think your opponent is going to try to do, and then you come up with something that you think will counter that, and then you find out who's right. And the person who's right wins. And that's great. I think that's a great way to play the game, and it makes sense that a lot of people prefer that over Melee. Whereas in Melee, you can know what your opponent is trying to do, but they can do it so well. They can do it so quickly, so perfectly spaced, with such care to all of the minutiae, that even though you know it's coming, even though you know what the appropriate response is, you can still lose to it. And that feeling of like, I don't care, I'm going to run in and shine you and then open you up to a huge combo because I'm just better than you, is so addictive and so enthralling. And at like the top level of play, it kind of goes back to the previous style of game, where everyone is so good at everything they're doing that it starts to kind of sort itself out again. But there's still moments in top level play, and this is where like the real psychology of the game comes through, that you go back to that sort of scenario where it's like, all right, Mango is coming in hot. He's just throwing out like 500 dares and mixing it up with retreating bears and mixing it up with laser pressure. And I can understand every facet of it. I can even read individual actions, and yet it just overwhelms people sometimes. I think of Melee like, I've thought of this image in my head a lot. It's going to sound corny, but it's just stuck with me, of like two really, really fast ninjas flying around. And it's like that blur effect, and they're almost just like a tornado. And the onlooker is like, it's just incomprehensible to it. And they know that if they were caught up in it, they would just die instantly. But then, once you know, once you really understand, you can tell that at the fastest they're doing, they're playing rock, paper, scissors over and over again, really, really fast. Just rock, paper, scissors, rock, paper, scissors, rock, paper, scissors. And that's the actual game, is reading each other on that RPS, happening in this vortex of movement and fluency and attacks. And that if you falter for a second, if you mess up and you start missing your rock, paper, scissors, you're just a little too slow, then they just, well, actually, in rock, paper, scissors, if you're a little too slow, that means you're going to win all the time. The analogy sort of breaks down there. But you know what I'm saying, right? And the downside of this is that HBox can just roll over everybody because he's playing a much different version of rock, paper, scissors. He's just playing like big rock, big rock, big rock. But I don't know. I don't know. I hope what I'm saying is kind of true. So that it makes sense, at least. If it isn't true for you, then whatever. But I hope you understand what I'm saying. Ultimate just sort of lacks that to some extent. It goes back to being kind of a flattened, deliberate, sorted out rock, paper, scissors of you make a choice, they make a choice, you see whose choice was better. But that's fine. And because the choices are so interesting and so diverse and so exciting, I think that's totally fine. And I still plan on playing this, and I still plan on watching it. I watched a bit of it at Genesis, mostly to watch Leffen play, because Leffen is super exciting to watch in this game. Pokemon Trainer is such a cool character. I didn't watch top 8. It was way too late, but it looked like an exciting top 8. It looks like it's going to be a really exciting metagame where we have lots of character diversity and international diversity and playstyle diversity. Yeah, I'm really happy. I'm really happy with how this turned out. It could have been so bad. It could have been a disaster. And I had every reason to believe it would be a disaster because they were focusing so much on the content rather than the mechanics. And I thought it was going to play basically just like Smash 4 again. But no, it's different enough, that's for sure. I'm really excited to see what other characters are added. I think Piranha Plant is just a fantastic addition. I really, really like that in Piranha Plant's Palutina's Guidance, or Polenta, or whatever her name is, which is like a little Easter egg where the characters of Kid Icarus talk about each character. They reference Mega Smilax, which is an enemy in Super Mario RPG. It gets a shout out. That's so cool. Yeah, I'm curious to see what other characters they add. I'm really worried about the kind of patch culture that will develop around this game. Smash players whine a lot. I whine a lot. I know what it's like to whine a lot. But right now, I really don't think anything needs to be nerfed. I really hope they do not rush to nerf things. If it was up to me, there wouldn't be balance patches more than like once a year. And that they would focus mostly on just things that are too easy to be as good as they are, rather than things that are just hard and good and interesting. And so far, it seems like that's the case. The 2.0 patch that came out with Piranha Plant did not nerf anything that I was upset by. It just kind of nerfed spammy things that are annoying at lower levels of play. So yeah, I'm pretty optimistic about the future of this game. And I'm not worried that it'll kill Melee. Melee will never die. That's what we established at the very start of this video, like an hour ago. I think, if anything, it's going to make Melee more popular. It's going to draw more people into watching competitive Smash as a whole. So I'm really happy about that aspect, too. Yeah, great game. Is that the last game? No, wait. Chunithm! So we started this off with Melee and a rhythm game, and now we're ending it with Ultimate and a newer rhythm game. Chunithm is a game I played in Japan a lot. I'll show you some footage of it. It's probably easiest. Chunithm? Whatever. What? Okay. That was strange. So this... We're going to see footage of people that are way better than me. But this game is actually a lot easier than it looks. It's kind of a new era of rhythm games where they're much more forgiving. I muted it because I'm paranoid about copyright strikes. The timing and stuff is much more forgiving than in older games, I think. Which I think is fine. It was very satisfying to get as good as I did when I did. So it's a keyboard that is as discrete as these notes potentially, but generally most of the notes are like in quadrants like this, and then it'll like split up into more segments when necessary. There's like slides and stuff, but the most exciting thing that you've probably noticed is that there's lifts, that there's sensors on the side panels that can tell how far up your hand is. So certain notes, hopefully one will come up here, will make you lift your hand into the air. Yeah, like that, the little upward green angle. Sometimes you have to hold your hand in the air and like lower it at certain times. And when I first heard about this game, I thought, that's stupid. That's like really not fun. And then I played the game just once, the very first time I played it, very first time I started lifting my hands up in the air. I was like, oh my god, this is so much fun. I don't even know why. I cannot tell you why it's so fun to just lift your hand in the air like that. Even though, of course, it looks pretty goofy, it's so much fun. Everything about this game, I was blown away by. I loved it. Aesthetically, it's great. The amount of like gacha things and grinding things in it is deviously addictive. You know, with every song, you're making progress on like 3 different fronts to unlock a bunch of aesthetic things. There's like all sorts of timed windows and bonus point opportunities and things like that. The difficulty curve, I think, is fantastic in that it makes you feel like you're good way faster than you're actually good. The soundtrack is like glorious. There's so many Toho remixes and bangers and stuff like that. They have the Take-Q OPs. Take-Q. Who even watches Take-Q? Like, but they're such good songs for rhythm games. I had thought that so many times before that I wish there was a many, many, money, money chart in ITG or in any other game. And now there is in Chunithm. Perhaps my favorite rhythm game of all time now. So yeah, I love this game. I really wish I could play it in North America. I think it's had some round 1s in the States, but not here, not in Canada. And it's going to be a long time before there's a controller for it. Because how the hell are they going to do the lifts? It's going to take some real engineering. So yeah. Oh, I miss it already. I miss it already. Okay. One more game. One more game we're going to talk about. And as I said, we're going kind of in chronological order. So you may have noted its absence already, but I was saving it until the end. So we played this game. I recorded all of it. All like 16 brutal hours. I loved this game. I really did. It made me so mad sometimes. It made me want to cry sometimes, but I did love it. I think it's genius. I loved all of the philosophical discussion during it, all of the things he talked about I found were insightful and resonant, and I really enjoyed sharing that with you and talking about it and getting into huge tangents about the sort of things he was saying, and that was so much fun. The feeling of getting good at something like this, something so esoteric, something so different than any other video game in its controls, was immensely satisfying. And I'd like to play it again. I'm actually hoping at some point I'll have a chance to play it again. I don't know how long it'll take me. I don't know if it'll be an experience where I am back down to 0 or where I'm very happy with myself and how quickly I kind of get back up to speed. I mostly want to beat it again because when my channel got deleted, I lost the video footage of me beating it. At the end, I did a big stream. I streamed maybe the last like hour and a half of me playing it. And that stream is lost for good now. So there's no video proof that I actually beat it. I'll have to just do it again. Oh, my channel. Oh, my getting over it. All right. This is a very long video, so we'll cut it here. Oh, God damn it. Anyways, yeah, those are the games I played in 2018. I didn't play a lot of games this year. There's a notable absence of any like long single-player game that I just played through, which I kind of missed. But again, it's all about time. You only have so much time. Alright. See ya.